Hello and welcome back to Becoming God's Prodigy. My name is Star Lawrence and I am your host. I have missed you guys. Have you missed me? I missed you guys. I'm so glad to be back recording and just jumping back into this podcasting. If you are new here, welcome and thank you for joining. I hope the Lord speaks to you through me. And if you are returning, thank you so much for your continuous support. We haven't seen each other since last August, so much has happened in the span of 4 months, and God has been really just been transforming and moving things in my life, starting with my perspective. You guys, it's been crazy. Also, let's take a moment to celebrate. It's officially been a year since I launched Becoming God's Prodigy, the podcast, and it celebrated its first birthday on November 28th. And God has really been dealing with me about consistency as it relates to this podcast. With that said, you guys can expect an episode to air twice a month. And I'm excited. I'm excited about it. So let's jump right in. So today we're focusing on riches. So, as you all know, or most of you know, I spoke about it in my last episode, and I had been experiencing some financial hardship. But God has really been showing Himself in my life. And what I have realized is that I have placed so much emphasis on material things and items that I felt as if made me rich. And when I say rich, I really mean secure. Like having a larger salary for one. Um, Things that made me feel like I had cushion, right? Placing my hope and really leaning on my salary to meet my needs and just things that I could make happen for myself and not truly allowing God to be God in my life. While I feel like I was still honoring Him in a way, I would give Him thanks, of course, give God all the glory, but for the most part, it almost felt like practical, like hindsight, looking back on it, as if it was kind of something that I was supposed to be doing because I know, like, God's the center of my life. We say all these things, but it's like we're saying all these things, but we're not truly believing and doing those. So God has really been transitioning my perspective on what riches truly means and what it truly means to rely on Him and rely on Him without wavering faith. But that's another story for another time. Like it was so easy for me to say, I trust God when I knew when my next paycheck was coming, right? When I didn't have a job, I didn't know. Things got harder. I didn't know where the income was coming from. Like a few months ago, even I was reading Ecclesiastes and Proverbs, and Ecclesiastes 2, verses 4 and 11 really touches on the emphasis of possessions and how when we look back on all of these accomplishments, right? All of these accolades, it's like, what do we really have outside of those things? Like you as a person on the inside of you. And the revelation that God spoke to me and that I wrote down was, what good is it to have it all? Right? And to whom is it pleasing to? Most of the time, we're seeking all of these things to please ourselves and pleasure in our lives and things. And it's not even pleasing to God. We can bask in all of these material things of life, accomplishments, accolades, and still experience a feeling of emptiness. And that happened over a year ago where I lost my job. And I'm like just having this realization. I'm not saying that these accomplishments and the accolades and things that I experienced are a waste, but it's like if they are outside of God's will, that may not be as purposeful as we hoped it would have been. I spent months, years, 2 years studying and trying to be the best I could be for a career path that I'm not even on anymore, right? I'm like, but I don't discredit God because I feel like the things that I had to go through is making me the person that I am. Some of the relationships that I made, I couldn't have made it without the career path that I was on. I still had assignments to do here, but God is like, you saying you want all of this? Let me show you something. Here, have it, but let me show you something. And I had to realize true riches comes from God and not anything that I can do or because of anything that I've done. And most often, like these riches are the riches that I can't even see. Like that these are not tangible things. I had accomplished so much by the age of 25. I'm 27 now, I know. I'm getting up there, but from the outside looking in, it would have just looked like, oh my goodness, she's made it. Like, oh wow, you know, way to go, girl. Y'all, I was so stressed out. I was so unhappy telling myself that I was happy because I had created this security blanket for myself. I was like, okay, this is my cushion. I'm breaking generational curses. I'm doing things no one's done. I'm 25 years old. You know, while in the background, I'm pleading, crying, begging God, show me my purpose. Show me my purpose. Reveal to me what my purpose. It was like I had all of this stuff. I'd done the big salary. I had, buying up, traveling, doing these things. I've done all these things and still felt empty. Like it's missing. It's not enough. Something's missing. This is not enough. And that's what I'm telling you. God has really changed my perspective on what it means to be rich and what it means to really lean on him and what it means to just kind of live your life and really have faith. That's really the one that God's been really like dealing with. This is what it means to have faith. It's like to really trust his word and not just say, oh, faith over fear, or I'm trusting and believing God, like while in the background and in the pits of your mind, I'm like worried half to death. Like I'm speaking negative thoughts and things over my situation. Like I'm projecting that into everything because I really don't even believe God. And that he's gonna do it. Like I know he can do it, but I'm like, okay, Jesus, like what are you doing? You're not doing it for me right now, like in this moment, how I want you to. Y'all, when I tell you, I felt so unfulfilled in so many ways. When I look back to where God has brought me from in the time span of a year, it isn't anything, let's say, it isn't anything like what I imagined for myself or what I thought it would look like. But I'm happy. I'm so happy. I'm less stressed. And most importantly, I actually feel like I'm walking in my purpose and my anointing that God has for me. I have a newfound happiness and that alone. And money did not buy that. Materialistic items did not buy that. It did not dress it up. God did it. And this is what God is going to do on the inner, that I see what he's reflecting on the outer. And I thank God and I give him all the glory for it because I'm so excited for what God is doing. And before it was a lot of I, and me. And now it's more like God and he. It's God and he. Like, it's like I did this. I did it was not very humble at all. And I told my mom, I said, I feel like I had to go through this because it's more humbling. I feel more humble by it. And then I couldn't really see my head getting big and exploding like I was getting bigger than myself, right? I couldn't see that before. But looking back on it, I'm like, oh, girl, you were out of pocket. Like your head was getting big, and that to me is scary and dangerous for you to have so much pride and put your ego, and that's what I was doing, and not even being able to recognize that is like a scary thing. So I thank God. And before I was like, Jesus, why would you allow this to happen to me? Like, why would you do this to me? Like, I've been doing everything in my mind, right? I've been doing everything you've asked me to do. Why would you allow me to go down this pathway if it was not for me? Like, I was angry. I was so angry and frustrated at God. But I was still trying to stand on my faith. I was still trying to stand on things that and promises that I truly believe from God, but also too on the back end, I'm like still like having this doubt in my mind. And when I was reading Proverbs and studying that, Proverbs 22:1 stuck out to me, and it says, "A good name is to be chosen over great wealth. Favor is better than silver and gold." And God's favor is so unmatched. It doesn't matter what the situation looks like. It doesn't matter if the finances are running low. It doesn't matter if life isn't panning out the way that you hope. God is in control. I'm a living, living testimony, living witness by this. If we just submit ourselves and our lives to Him, everything will work out. Life has felt so much more purposeful since I decided to submit to God's will and to His plan for my life and not do the I and the me and what I want. The things that I have found to be most monetizing has nothing to do with money at all. It's the time spent with God, it's the time spent with my loved ones, and it's doing things that to pour into myself to become the best version of myself. And this, to me, is true riches and true wealth. It has nothing to do with materialistic things. It's positioning myself to receive God's approval and His favor. Because at the end of the day, that's all that really matters to me. So I say all of this to say to you, let's live a rich life and let's live a rich life together. A life that is pleasing to God. I love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back with another episode this month. I love you. Bye.